Hello everybody, this is Athulya and welcome back to my YouTube channel. My very first video, that is how to create a compelling resume in the series Crack Your Dream Job, was very well received. Thank you for all your comments and feedbacks, and I'll definitely try and incorporate them in my upcoming videos. In today's video, we are going to talk about the things which you must not be writing in your resume. This is the second video in Crack Your Dream Job series, and I hope you are going to stay tuned and watch it till the end. So more than 85% of the resumes that I have received, I have seen these things. These are very little things, but I've never understood why would somebody want to waste the space in resume by writing these things. It never made sense to me, and I'm sure it doesn't make sense to most of the recruiters. So now, without further ado, let's jump right in. So, things not to put in the resume. The very first thing is too much information. Now, it's very tempting to write everything that you have done in your resume, but keep in mind that the recruiter is hardly going to spend 6 to 7 seconds on your resume in which he or she must feel that, okay, the skills are aligned to what she is looking for, and your resume should be simple without a lot of information so that the main information is not being missed and it's seen at the very first place. How many words are there in your resume? Have you ever checked this? Comment down below and tell me how many words are there in your resume. In the upcoming videos, I'll be telling you how many words is an ideal resume supposed to have, the range of words. Let's move on to the point number 2. Unnecessary personal information. Now, information like your marital status, your complete address, nobody wants to know these things, at least not before calling you for the interview. So, I have seen that a lot of resumes has that this much space given to full address, marital status, spouse's name. It never makes sense. We need not have all of it in our resume. Our resume space is very limited. Let's make sure that each and every line that we put in makes sense and is relevant to whatever position we are applying for. Another thing which I've noticed is declaration. Say, for example, your name is Akash Verma, and there are certain people who write this in the end that I, Akash Verma, hereby declare that all the information contained herein is true and correct to my knowledge and belief and all of that. Why? It does not make any sense. Why would you put something which is not correct or which is not true? Anyway, the recruiters are not expecting you to put incorrect information, right? So you don't need to explicitly write a declaration to say that all of this is true. It's just occupying a lot of space in your resume. The space is just getting wasted. Consider removing that. It's not required. Have you put that in your resume? Comment below if you have put it, and I would like to know your reason behind, like, why would you put that statement in your resume? Point number 3 is inaccuracies about your qualifications and your expertise. With this, what I'm trying to say is, do not put any incorrect information about your work experience. Like, say something that you haven't done, but you have just mentioned in your resume. Because what's going to happen is, if the recruiter picks up that, and if he asks a certain question on that particular point, then it's going to be very embarrassing for you because you have no idea what you have written. Your integrity, sincerity, honesty, everything will be questioned. Then the interviewer will also feel that whatever else is written in your resume might not be true. And from there, your interview, my friend, is going down south, which of course nobody would want, right? So let me share an example from my own experience. So once I was taking an interview for a ServiceNow developer. So we wanted somebody who just has basic knowledge and close to a year of experience. Now, this person had 2 to 3 years of experience. That's what was written on the resume for sure. And then there was a certain statement that was written on a certain concept called SLA. So I picked that up and I asked, what have you developed? How did you do that? And certain questions around that very concept. This person did not even know the full form of that. So there was about 15 to 17 seconds of pause, and then he said that, I don't know. So I asked him if I'm looking at his resume or have I mistaken, like, why have you written this on the resume? After 5-6 seconds, he just said, I wanted to impress the recruiter. Now you tell me, did he impress me? No, right? I just felt, what if everything else is also wrong? Is also something that he hasn't worked on? What if the entire 2 years of experience with ServiceNow itself was fake? So do not give such chances to your recruiter. Do not. So, comment guilty if you have done something like that in the past. Now, if you are a person who feels that you don't have any relevant information to put up, or there is a lot of space and you want to somehow fill it up, or if you're forced to write certain things which you haven't really worked on, so what you can do is you can read about it. If not practical knowledge, at least have that theoretical knowledge, that very good grasp over that particular concept. And during the interview, you can quite honestly say that you haven't directly worked on it, but that is something which interests you and you are willing to learn. And if given an opportunity, you would like to work in that space. If you say this sort of statements and this kind of an answer, that shows that you have a very positive attitude, which is very important, which is short green signal for your qualification, for qualifying the interview. Secondly, the recruiter would feel that you are eager to learn and you have been honest about whatever that was. So this is a complete win-win situation. So if you feel that there is something that you haven't worked on but you need to put in, then this is what you must do. You need to do that homework from your end. That is very important. Point number 4, which is not to be written in your resume, is company's information. Now, with company's information, what I'm trying to say is their goals, their mission, their values. You don't need to write these things in your resume. The recruiter is not interested in your previous company. He is interested in you, and he's interested to know what have you done, how have you contributed for your company's goals, and not your company's goals. So in my experience, I have come across resumes where people have actually written good 8 to 9 lines about the companies that they have worked for. Say, for example, they have worked for a leading IT company in India. Then they would write so and so company, like whatever they have worked for, is a leading IT company in India. We had this much goal, we achieved this much. For the green energy space, we are doing these things. No, nobody is interested in that. Why would any recruiter want to read about another company? No, right? So your work experience essentially must be your company's name, wherever you have worked, your title or your position, your designation in that company, and 4 to 5, your experience, of course, from when to when did you work, and 4 to 5 bullet points, which essentially tells how have you contributed to that company's growth. That is all what is required. Point number 5 is references. Now, in an older format, like back in 2004, 5 and in 90s, people used to write 2 or 3 references and everything on the resume. But now that is not required. So for the very first call, you don't need these references. Once you clear all the interviews, if a company is really interested to know, then they will essentially ask for that information, like for that particular referral. from your previous company or whatever. So then you can provide, but you don't need to write the references on the resume directly. Because so even if the company is doing any sort of background research, they'll probably go to your LinkedIn profile, and if they want to go another step ahead, they might go through your social media profiles. That would be enough as a background check for a company before the very first interview. So once they decide that they'll be giving you the offer, or during the final stages, if they want the references, they'll ask you for it, and that's when you give. In your resume, try and understand that the space in your resume is very limited. So each and every statement that you put in, that's extremely important and relevant. Do not put references, their address, their information. No, that's not required. If the company wants it, they'll ask you for it, and that's when you provide it. Point number 6 is a photograph. Now, this is a personal choice, I would say. I do not personally feel that a photo adds to anything. It just occupies a lot of space in your resume. And another thing which I've noticed is a recruiter, like I said, hardly spends 5-6 seconds on a resume. And when there is a picture, or if you use a lot of small icons, those are all little distractions. And essentially, what's happening is you lose that much time which the recruiter is spending on that picture or that icons. Like those seconds, you just lose it. So I personally feel that the space wherein you can put a photograph, you can actually add in more content about you, which is more relevant, and which would also make the recruiter feel that, yeah, this person is the right fit. Another thing is, if the person is really keen on knowing how this person looks like, he can just go through their LinkedIn profile and have a look at it. So a photo in your resume essentially just uses a lot of space and doesn't really add to any value. That's what I have seen. That's what I feel. Now comment below and let me know what is your reason and why do you have a picture in your resume. How do you think that a photo adds to your candidature if you put in on your resume? Okay, now let's move to the next point, which is point number 7, and that is negative comments about your former employer. Now, this is one of the biggest no-nos. Definitely not put in your resume, and even in the interviews, if you get called for the interviews, do not say anything negative about your previous employer. Because what essentially happens is, when you say negative things about your previous employer, your recruiter would probably feel that this person is just complaining. He hasn't really tried or made any efforts to correct whatever was happening in his previous organization. And probably in this organization as well, it'll be difficult for this particular person to adjust, and he's just gonna complain. So don't do that. Do not put negative comments of negative feedback or comments about your previous employer, and definitely not talk about it, like not talk about your previous employer in a negative way in your interview. Now, point number 8 is hobbies. Now, this again is a personal choice. I feel that hobbies, icons, photographs, these are all small distractions, and essentially you lose those few seconds of the recruiter wherein he or she could actually have read something which you had written which was relevant through these non-important things. Now, again, writing about hobbies is I also feel that is very specific to the role that you're applying. Say, for example, if you are applying for a graphic designer position, then you can write something like drawing, painting, something like that, because it somehow, that hobby adds to whatever you have to offer. That will show that you are creative, you are artistic, and those are few skills which a creative position like graphic designer would require. So if you feel that your hobbies are actually adding to your candidature, then yes, you may put it. But I personally feel that it's not required. It again uses a lot of space. Now, those are all your talking points which you can talk about during the interview. You don't need to put all of that in your resume before itself. The next point is do not use passive language. Always use active language, action verbs, and just make the other person feel that you have done these things. That is extremely important. Now, when it comes to these action verbs, I'll make a separate video about it. But for now, if you really want to know what these action verbs are, you can pretty much Google it. There are a lot of websites which gives you action words to use for different situations. I'll also link few below, but definitely you can Google and you can mention those in your resume. The next point, that is point number 10, is tabular formatted resume, or the usage of table for qualifications. Now, this is a format that is being followed in a lot of colleges. Me, myself, being from an MBA background, I know that most of the premium B schools in our country uses this tabular sort of a format. It might be great when you are in a B school, because over there your placement cell is directly, your placement committee or your placecom or placement cell is directly giving your resumes to the recruiter, so there's no problem with that. But when you apply for a job after your college on your own through LinkedIn or any other job posting website, what happens is your resume undergoes this different ATS, that is applicant tracking system. And when you have those tables in your resume, the important information is missed, and probably your resume will not pass that ATS test. So what happens is it's not gonna reach any human being's hand. So no matter what you have written or how much qualified or however good you are, if your resume is not reaching a human being, what is the point? So at the beginning itself, at the start itself, let's just avoid those tables so that our resume clears the ATS and lands in a human being's hand, right? Point number 11 is abbreviations. Now, I understand that you might have used a lot of abbreviations in your previous organization and you tend to probably speak in the very same language. And you might write those abbreviations in your work experience. Sometimes, maybe the recruiter who's reading through it might not understand it. So if you are trying to share a very important thing or a very relevant thing which you have done in past, and if the recruiter does not even understand, what is the point? So let's not use abbreviations, or rather let's write every point in a way that it's very clear when anybody reads it. Now, this is the very last point, that is non-business social media or websites that you have, which is not relating to your business. So if you're not in that creative field, you don't need to share your Instagram or your Facebook profile with your resume. That's not required. If somebody is really interested in, and if there are certain companies these days which actually goes through your social media, so if they are really interested, they'll anyway have a look at it. But you don't need to provide those in your resume. In your resume, essentially, you should give your LinkedIn and any other professional social media website that you use, and websites like GitHub if you are into software development or something like that. So basically, which showcases your skills. That is what you need to provide, not your social media wherein you don't put work-like content. With that, we come to an end to this video, and I hope you really liked the content. Do let me know in the comments below if there is something that you feel we must not be putting in the resume and I have probably missed to cover it. I'll be extremely interested in learning more. And if you like this sort of a content, do like and share this video with your friends and family. In my upcoming videos, I'll be talking about the different sections in the resume and the different strategies or the different type of statements which one can add in each of those sections. And if that sort of content excites you and if you feel that will be helpful, definitely subscribe to my channel and press the bell icon as well. Thank you for watching, and it's me, Athulya Nair, signing off. Bye.